let us formally open the fourth plenary in this 59th convention of the National Council of Negro Women. We do so with the theme, for such a time as this, a call for resilience and resurgence. I want to immediately give the floor to an extraordinary leader in the National Council of Negro Women, a member of our board, the executive committee, and the sister chair of NCNW's Committee for Fund Development, Sister Regina Majors.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cole. Thank you for the honor and the privilege to be here with you on today. And to all those here, thank you so much for being here with us. As Dr. Cole said, I am Regina Majors, and I am a board member, the chair of Fund Development. Today, we are going to discuss the President's Circle, talk about why we're here. We're gathered here in light of something that we wrote out in November, the President's Circle. And so we're excited for all the chartered members that have joined us. We have over 113 members with us, chartered members that have joined. And we're just going to discuss what the President's Circle is. How can you become a part of that? Why are we doing it? What is the purpose? What is the mission? You know, as we know, the mission of the National Council is to lead, advocate for, and empower women of African descent, their families, and communities. How can we do that? What must we do? This organization is strong, 85 years, 85. How will we continue another 85 years? And so these are things that we're looking at. When I think about my own personal story and how I joined in 2004, it was because of my mother. My mother invested in me as someone has invested in you, as we need to invest in others. And in 2004, she paid for me to become a member. And I didn't really understand the National Council of Negro Women. I didn't understand the purpose or the reasoning or anything. And I would come to the meetings, and I found myself to be one of the younger ladies at the meetings. And one meeting I sat there and I thought, what's going to happen when these ladies, you know, mature on and leave on and go on to glory? And it was that moment I realized that I needed to take a charge and I needed to do something. You know, it wasn't like they were coming to me, but I felt like I needed to make a change and I needed to get involved. And so I came with another attitude, and I felt like, you know, I'm going to get in. I'm going to do whatever I can to make this work. And that's what I did. And I was so excited about joining and becoming the president and everything. And excuse me, 1 second. My battery just said it's dying. I don't know how. Uh-oh. I'm sorry. I do apologize. 1 second. Please just give me 1 minute. Just something technical. Here it is. I'm sorry. Please forgive me.
Take your time, Regina. Take your time.
Technical difficulties on my end. My battery just flashed dying. I'm like, huh? Okay, I'm sorry. Excuse me, ladies. So with that being said, I got very involved with the National Council and realized the importance of and what we have been doing. And, you know, I feel like it's so important for us to give and be a part of this wonderful organization. My mother invested in me. She believed she was a giver. And so, you know, I realized that I needed to give and give back. And many of you know that I lost my mother. She was very active in the community. Several Kayetta Five, her soror sisters, have been a part of us today with the national president. They knew my mother very well. But my mother invested in me and she believed in me. And she told me that NCNW was an organization that I need to become a part of. And so I'm so thankful that she did. My mother passed in December. And, you know, I think about what we're going through now, and that to me was a real defining moment that it touched me. It left me in a bad way. I mean, she was my mentor, my coach, my friend. But even with that, I had ladies from the National Council, my family, that my mother introduced me to, that reached out to me and said, how are you? What can I do for you? I'm lifting you up in prayer. And so it's things like that, that even during this pandemic, I think about how we're giving and giving and giving and giving. And it's just so important that we recognize today the ladies and the men that have joined our chartered President's Circle. And so at this moment, I would like to have their names ran on the screen of the chartered members that have joined the President's Circle. We have over 100 members' names that are going to come through, and they're chartered members. Chartered being they are part of the first group that's rolling out. They started this with us, and we are so excited. So if you would please run the names, Damon, I would appreciate that. If you could run the names now. should see the name. Can you put it on the, it's going to go quick, but can you see the names? Can you
Yes.
share? Okay, thank you. There you go, thank you. So what you'll see before us is the names of, again, chartered members of the President's Circle. And we are so grateful for these members. It's with their will to give. The greatest benefit of joining the President's Circle is the dedication that they have made to Ncnw, and that they're going to make a difference in the lives of women, families, and their community. The support goes directly to the organization's operation funds. Other benefits are included but not limited to. We have quarterly communications from our very own Dr. Cole. We have fireside chats with Dr. Cole and other members. Honorable Alexis Herman has been on the fire chat with us, as well as the Reverend Barbara Shaw. So these are just little things that we're doing. We have a pin that we're going to roll out to every member. Will receive a President's Circle pin. Look for that real soon. You will receive that. And so with that, we just say thank you so much for becoming a chartered member. It is so much work. It is such a time as this. I am reminded of a poem by Benjamin Mays. It says, life is just a minute, only 60 seconds in it. Forced upon us, can't refuse it, didn't seek it, didn't choose it, but it's up to me to use it. Give account if I abuse it. It's just a tiny minute, but eternity is in it. What will we do for women to turn their can'ts into cans and their dreams into plans? It's because of the President's Circle that we still have an initiative to give and to give back to our communities. So with that, we say thank you so much for joining the President's Circle. We will tell you after Dr. Cole gives a briefing of her introduction, we'll tell you how you can become a part of the President's Circle. It's for everyone. You know, when we look at the pandemic, we look at that there's a systematic pandemic going on as well. Unfortunately, wealth in this country is not equally distributed. Matter of fact, it's unequal, and particularly between the white and Black race in the households. African-American families, they have a fraction of the wealth that white families, leaving them more economically insecure. So it is our responsibility to give back, to make a difference, to give to those that need help. And so with that, we just say thank you again, and we look forward to working with you and you supporting our mission. At this time, Dr. Cole, I will turn it back over to you. Thank you so much.
I want to thank you, sister. Really thank you, Regina. You have stepped up and stepped into this responsibility.
Thank you.
Well, my sisters and the few but righteous brothers who are with us, good afternoon again. I am going to do my best, but I know I'm going to fail. I'm going to do my best to capture, to find words that express my gratitude to each of you who has indeed joined the President's Circle. But I also want to express gratitude, and the words will not be sufficient again, to all of the individuals who are working so diligently and effectively in organizing and sustaining the President's Circle. That includes, of course, my very own sister special assistant, Summerlin Stovall, long-standing member of the headquarters staff that most folk call Mr. David Glenn. I call him Brother D. And I've always thought that somehow, if I ever had a leadership role at Ncnw, there would be sisters who would join me in raising the funds that we need. And they have done so. In addition to Regina, our sister executive director has been smitten with fund development. And then I want to lift up Carla Ray. Carla Ray is our fundraising consultant. The very idea of the President's Circle, let me be honest, she's the one who reminded me that when we were at Spelman, Sister Leader Ingrid Saunders Jones, you remember this. When we were at Spelman, and Carla Ray was working with me in fund development, we created a similar idea. So to each and everyone who has had any involvement in the launching of this, I want to say thank you. When we were back there, I know it seems like almost centuries. When we were back in November, who could have imagined that today we would be in the middle of 3 pandemics? One that threatens our health disproportionately. One that threatens the wealth, more specifically the economic conditions in the United States. And we as Black folk, specifically as Black women, affected again disproportionately. And third, these raging expressions of systemic racism and sexism affecting us. Excuse me. So with these 3 pandemics came additional challenges for not-for-profit organizations. What do I mean by that? Quite simply that no matter how righteous your mission is, without resources, that mission cannot be met. And if anybody knew that, it was my immediate predecessor. And that's why Sister Leader Ingrid Saunders Jones would repeatedly ask us, how is Ncnw doing? And because of her work and the work of so many others, we could respond, Ncnw is alive, she's well, and she's solvent. Well, to remain solvent means that we have to, in the middle of these 3 pandemics, we have to let go of uncertainty and grab a hold of creativity. And that's what the President's Circle is about. It is simply a creative way to help to bring about the financial resources that we need. Very quickly, I want to share that earlier today, like many of you, I put on my hat and I went to a luncheon. It was the luncheon of the Bethune-Height Recognition Program. For those of you who were there in your hats, or if you chose not to wear a hat, you were a part of an invigorating, extraordinary program that had been imagined for the day and effectively pulled off by 2 women that I call the dynamic duo. Co-chairs, Johnny Walker and Donna Michelle Fields. As I witnessed and heard the amount of money, financial resources coming into the headquarters of Ncnw through BHRP, I was deeply moved. I am sharing that because I want to make it so clear that there's no competition between the President's Circle and the Bethune-Height Recognition Program. Let me use an analogy. My sisters, because I'm a Delta doesn't mean I can't be a Link. And because I'm a Delta and I'm a Link doesn't mean I can't be in the Ncnw. As we move as best we can into the future, we are going to have to find more and more and more sources of sources to keep our organization soaring to the heights of its possibilities. So with all of that said, I now have quite a joy, and it is to introduce one of our new, I prefer the word, colleagues to staff members. Rosalind Hannibal Booker is joining Ncnw as Director of Philanthropy. We so look forward to all that she will do to build the partnerships from which will come so much of the funding that we need. Rosalind, are you on? And could you take just a moment to say what's on your heart? Are you there? I know I had the joy of introducing her, but I'm not sure that Rosalind was to be present. All right, let me then simply bring closure by saying that that extraordinary woman who founded our organization, and no less the amazing woman who led it for 50 years, each would remind us that service is the rent we pay for our room on earth, and we serve by giving of our time, our talent, and our treasure to all of the charter members of the President's Circle, to all of the future members of the President's Circle. Thank you for paying your rent. Regina?
Thank you, Dr. Cole. Thank you, Dr. Cole. Thank you for your inspiring words. Again, the President's Circle. Anyone can become a member of the President's Circle. It's $1,000. You can pay 10-month payments. We asked that if you want to make the payments, you can call Mr. Glenn or Miss Summerlin at the headquarters. The website is ncnw.org. If you give $100, $1,000, or $100,000, we're just asking you to just be generous this season in a time such as this. The membership director, Mr. David Glenn, we've been so grateful for him, and as well as Miss Summerlin. I would be remorse if I didn't say I'm thankful for Miss Janice Mathis, Miss Carla Ray as well. And I do look forward to working with Miss Rosalind Booker. We have a committee, a fund development committee, Brenda Anderson, Donna Michelle Fields, Deborah Foster, Canova Jackson, Courtney Lattimore. We're looking forward to working with all these ladies to make the President's Circle the top in this nation. So please, again, the website is ncnw.org. We invite you to become a part of the President's Circle. We invite you to give back and pour into what means so much to you. And that is what was founded 85 years ago by Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune. I thank you for your time and your interest and your future commitment to the President's Circle. Continue to enjoy the rest of this program. And I ask you to also to please stay online. Please stay with us after the next preliminary, after this preliminary, Dr. Cole's State of the Art Union will be aired. So please stay with us. Please do not leave. She has something very important to say, and we need to hear it in such a time as this. Thank you.
Thank you, Regina. And this is now quite an experience for me to do a handoff and to do it to my sister leader. I don't even know when I started calling Ingrid Saunders Jones sister leader, but I know it was way back in the days.
It was.
In Atlanta, Georgia, when I was at Spelman College and she was at the Coca-Cola Company. And my admiration and respect and affection for Ingrid was pretty high back in those days. And then when she brought closure on those days at Coca-Cola and came to the National Council of Negro Women, that's when my respect and my admiration and my affection really soared as I watched her truly, with others, transform our beloved organization. So, Sister Leader, I pass it to you. Before I do so again, Regina has announced, and let me just indicate why. Yesterday, we did not have the time to play a recording of my message on the state of our organization. And so at the end of this plenary, if you will please, you can stay for that recording. Sister Leader.
I am so glad to join you, Sister President of our beloved Ncnw, and to the convention tri-chairs, Presidents Dawson, Murphy, and Jeffries Leonard. I want to thank them for their leadership. And it is my honor to join you today to introduce the next session of our 59th biannual convention. But I do want to take a point of personal privilege first, because I want to pause to congratulate Johnnetta B. Cole for leading us to and leading us through this 59th convention, which will always have an asterisk by it. It will have an asterisk because it is the year of COVID-19. So to have a virtual convention with over 1,000 participants, and most of us at varying levels of tech savvy, many of us, me included, no savvy. Our virtual convention is wonderful. And I just wanted to say bravo to our president and chair, to our executive committee, to our board of directors, to our tri-chairs, to our staff, our executive director, Janice Mathis, and to that wonderful convention support staff. If I could, I'd make all the noise in the universe to congratulate you on what has been an inspiring and uplifting convention. So our session today is entitled Race and Gender in Corporate America. We have four of the brightest stars in the corporate world to discuss these realities. We all know that America has a complicated relationship with race and gender. And as a 31-year veteran of corporate America, I can attest that those complications often extend to the corporate footprint. And I would also assure you that to be successful in corporate America, you have to be competent for sure, but you have to be beyond competent. You must be courageous to be an effective leader and an effective executive. Our panel will explore such things today. And I start my introductions with Alva Adams Mason, who works for Toyota as we know it, but formally it is the Toyota Motor of North America. Alva is in the car industry. And my having grown up in Detroit, Michigan, the Motor City, I can testify to the historic male domination of her industry. And she has a 21-year history with Toyota. She is now Senior Director of Multicultural Business Alliance and Strategy and Multicultural Dealer Relations. But most of all, she is a huge supporter of Ncnw. She absolutely brings Toyota to us in support of our work, but she is a personal supporter of NCNW. And that is so important. Thank you, Alva. Nicole Clifton works at UPS. And I tell you, it is so appropriate today to have her because we can congratulate her one day after she received a promotion. Nicole has been appointed President of Social Impact and President of the UPS Foundation. Now, UPS is headquartered in the Atlanta area, and I know how important they are to the metro area, the state of Georgia, but also their entire business footprint. And Nicole has received the credibility and support of her organization with this promotion. She has a 17-year history at UPS and was previously the Vice President of Public Affairs. Congratulations, Nicole. Our next panelist is Donna Michelle Fields. Donna Michelle has NCNW running through her blood. Her mother transfused her when she was a little girl. She serves as co-chair of NCNW's Bethune-Heights Recognition Program. I appointed her to that position. I am so glad she said yes. And she is one half of what Dr. Cole calls the dynamic duo. Well, that dynamic duo, the other part being Johnny Walker, raised over, I stopped counting, at $150,000 at our Bethune-Heights program luncheon. Thank you so much, Donna Michelle. She has done so much for NCNW, and a lot of it comes through her Colgate-Palmolive corporate support that she brings. You know, she serves as the Associate Director of Community Affairs, but I could tell you a lot of other things, but she is famous for developing and overseeing the award-winning Bright Smiles, Bright Future program. And that will be a part of her legacy forever. Thank you, Donna Michelle Fields. Our last panelist is Teresa Nguyen Roseborough, my Atlanta homegirl and former native. She works for the Home Depot, where she has one of the highest ranking jobs in the enterprise and one of the highest ranking jobs in the industry. She is Executive Vice President and General Counsel. She is responsible for the legal function, for government relations, for external affairs, for corporate communications, and she is the secretary to the Home Depot Board of Directors. That's just the tip of her iceberg. She has been Deputy Assistant Attorney General under Bill Clinton, and she was a law clerk for Justice John Paul Stevens at the U.S. Supreme Court. And there's so much more that you're able to read on our website. And with those introductions complete, I'm going to turn it back over to our Uber leader. But before I do, I want to again say thank you, Johnnetta B. Cole, for your leadership. We are all glad to be in cahoots with you and in cahoots with one another. I give you, my ladies and gentlemen who have joined us, our leader, Dr. Johnnetta B. Cole.
Thank you, Sister Leader. I turn to these four forces of nature, four creations of our good Mother, Father God, who came into the world with two wonderful gifts. They were then young, gifted and black. So the first gift was to come into the world as a little black baby. But your second gift was to come into the world as a girl. And so I'm going to ask each of you to just take a moment to to put that double gift in relationship with what one of our sister scholars called double jeopardy. The double jeopardy of being Black and female is what Fran Beal talked about. But you can see that I'm asking you to talk a little bit about both. No particular order. This is a conversation among sisters. Who wants to just jump in?
I think I'm the person that found my unmute button fastest, so I'll take a stab at it.
Please, Teresa.
First, let me just say thank you so much for allowing me to be part of this panel today and to participate in this amazing program. Allow me to join you in congratulating all the members of the President's inaugural circle. And what an important step that is as women to step up to ensure the longevity of the organization and the stability of its mission in a time of great crisis. And I was really struck by what you said about all that's going on right now and the multiple pandemics we're in. And one of the things that we all have to be mindful of is that we are all in these storms of social unrest, fight for civil justice, economic turmoil, the pandemic, but we're not all in the same boat. Mm-hmm. And I really appreciate what this organization has done to demonstrate empathy and flexibility in making sure that everybody has the tools that they need to navigate their own boat through these crises and storms. So thank you so much for that. And I also want to congratulate Nicole. Congratulations on your promotion, President of Social Impact for UPS. And Nicole is already a person who's had great impact on our community, an amazing leader, and love being a part of seeing you step up and to even a greater role and for greater perspective. So thank you so much. And also great to be on this panel with other wonderful participants in corporate America. You know, somebody asked me one time whether I had experienced more discrimination because of being Black or because of being a woman. And I told him I didn't think that the people who discriminated against me ever took the time to divide that out. So I certainly wasn't going to. And we do have, you know, the privilege of being parts of two communities, the community of African Americans and people of color in this country and the community of women. And as we think about, for example, the impact of the loss of Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the US Supreme Court and the work that she did to bring women into equality in this country and to fight against laws that discriminated against women, that denied women equal benefits if they were serving in the military, that denied them the right to participate as ministers of estates, that denied them equal compensation on the theory that they didn't need it because they didn't have responsibilities of family. We can celebrate her historic contributions to women while also appreciating the contributions of someone like John Lewis to changing the course of the arc of moral justice for all African Americans in this country. So I think we feel both. I think you're right, Dr. Cole. It is a privilege and a power to be a member of both of those communities and know that they're both fighting into the same types of prejudice and discrimination. But I feel a great strength from being part of the intersection of those communities.
Hello, it's go right ahead.
Go ahead.
Thank you so much for inviting me here to this panel. I'm so honored. I really am honored by the other women that are here on this panel, and of course by Dr. Coles and our esteemed Ingrid Saunders Jones. And I'm just so humbled to be here. And I had to really think about what I was going to say when I came here, because I had to make sure I got my facts right. And I live it every day, but I wanted to make sure that I had my facts right. So I started doing the research. I started going back to check, the McKinsey reports, all the traditional places that we go to, the Brookings. And I even went to to the Lean In report on Black women in corporate America that's done by Lean In and the McKinsey company, just to make sure I got the facts right. And I thought about it and I thought about it, and I looked at my company's stance on and positioning on racism and sexism and our diversity plans, did all the traditional studies that we needed to do. And I needed to do to make sure that I got it right, because I'm not just talking to anybody. I'm talking to my sisters who I admire and look up to. And one of the things that I have found that you're right. It is, I don't know if it's a double-edged sword, a double-edged gift, but I'm thinking in the same vein of Black girl magic. We often have to deal with sexism and racism. And quite often when you're dealing with these kinds of programs in many corporations, they focus on one or the other, but not a combination of both that uniquely impact and women of color. And I find that as an opportunity for me to help fill up that gap and move us forward. Quite often it's uncomfortable to be in the room to make that statement or to say, no, we need to look at this another way in relationship to Black women within corporate America. And it's that courageous spirit, that having those courageous conversations without fear of penalty. I worked for, prior to Colgate, doesn't sound like it, but prior to Colgate, I did work for the Tribune Company, and I did work for Western Union International. And in those roles, I remember one time the CEO, and I was young and dumb, maybe young and courageous, and the CEO said to one of my vice presidents, you know that Dawna Michelle Fields? She's not afraid of anybody. I don't think she's afraid of anybody but Jesus Christ. So I always had that courage in me to make those kind of statements that would make it fair and equitable, not just for me, but all the people around me. Because as you know, when you take care of Black women, and when Black women are succeeding, the whole community succeeds. So I'm sort of, it's a gift, but at the same point, it's sort of like a double-edged sword. You have to be able to use this tool wisely. Thank you.
So I'll step in, and first of all, thank you all for the opportunity to be here, and thank you for the love and the congratulations. I can't tell you what an honor it is to be here with you all today. So many of you that I've looked up to and stand on your shoulders. I'm having a hard time keeping it together over here, but so thank you so much. The thought that comes into my mind is Paula Giddings saying, when and where I enter, the whole race enters with me. It's something that I have kept in the back of my head forever. And I think race and gender in that same vein. I think being an African-American female is certainly a gift. And I've celebrated it my whole life. I've never been shy about being a Black girl. I've always had lots of intersection of lots of different friends and family that I call, my friends, but I've never really been shy about saying I'm a Black girl. I know who I am, and I've never looked at it as a burden or a detractor. And so I think that has served me well. It has caused me to be very purposeful about what I choose to do, very conscious about my words and my actions, because that people are watching. And in corporate America, you've got about one shot, to be honest. Yeah. You've got about one. And, my mother has instilled in me the importance of your reputation and guarding your reputation and being a woman of integrity. And so I think I'm very conscious of those values, because those are the things that we use every day and as we walk around in this space, in this body as Black women, to make sure that we can hold our head up high and lead with our values, lead with our faith, and be very purposeful about who we are. and be transparent. I think this is, this is a time that is a struggle, but it's also an exciting time because people are having conversations that we've never had. And we can now give a lot of validation and support to conversations that have been going on in our head and maybe in our small circles for decades. Now they're coming out in the open, and this is the opportunity for us to really embrace the platform that we have to help guide, the next generation, so that my daughter doesn't have to continue to struggle the way you all have, the way I have. I think that's our obligation. So I'm happy to be here with you all today to talk about that.
I want to say thank you so much, Ncnw, for having me. It's a wonderful, you're a wonderful organization. It's great to be able to support you and to continue to support you. Thank you for all of the great things that you are doing in the community, especially for the underserved information that you're giving. So it's just so wonderful to be a part of Ncnw and to be a part of this plenary session today. What I would like to say is this is a really great time to be an African-American woman. We've always had strong shoulders. And at the end of the day, we will always be standing. And it's, so it's so important because I think we're at a stage now where we are owning who we are and owning our strength. And we know that. In corporate America, it's very, it can be tricky because it's very, very difficult at times to detect racism, right? You don't know if it's because you're just not part of the club, or if it's a gender issue, or if someone is just rude. So you have to continue to just hold on to your values, make sure that you do everything that you're supposed to do in your space. And you have to be your sister's keeper inside of corporate America, helping to nurture, helping to mentor, and helping them to understand the corporate game to be able to navigate through all of the difficult times.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, sisters. And I'm so pleased that each of you spoke so much from experience in the heart on that, because it does concern me when we only address part of these dualities. You cannot beat Black girl magic. We can't even find the right language for it, but we know it when we see it and feel it and we're expressing it. But we also know what it is to have been subjected since 1619 to a particular kind of double systemic racism. And you all have just captured that so well from your personal experience. Now, I want to ask the question that I just can't stop asking. Having been the president of Spelman, the president of Bennett, having been blessed to know women like all of you on this panel, and to have a really large network of Black women, how could it be 2020 without a single Black woman as the CEO of a Fortune 500 company? Why? And what do we do about it?
So I'm going to jump in and I'm going to say, this is a treacherous game. It's hard. It is incredibly hard. And I staff my former CEO at the Business Roundtable, and I've met one African-American CEO in that time, Ursula Burns. And I think about the fact that the pipeline is shallow. And we need to, you know, as Alva said, be our sister's keeper so that we can fill that pipeline. I don't know any other way around it. We are all very dynamic, smart. So it's not a question of competence.
Mm-hmm.
It is not a question of competence. It is a question of an access that I think we need to band together and make sure that we have the same playbook and that we've got one another's backs on boards. When we get on boards and can start pushing down the expectation from the board level that there be a Black female in the CEO position, that's where those decisions are made. And so it is a pipeline and access question. Mm-hmm. And I don't have all the answers to how we get there, but I do see the roadmap. Mm-hmm. I see the roadmap, and I'm optimistic that we can create that roadmap and fill it, but we have to be intentional about it.
And I want to expand on what Nicole just said. You know, I totally agree with Nicole. And just expand a little bit about My Sister's Keeper. You know, there are so few of us, and there are so few of us in corporate America that even make it to the executive level. So when I talk about My Sister's Keeper, we have to realize that everyone can't get to the top at the same time. And sometimes that means there's sacrifice that we have to make for that one person to get there. Mm-hmm. And if we can get that one person there, and then they work on getting more people to move to the top. Mm-hmm. But if we don't make the sacrifice to help one sister get in a certain position in which she can help others, that makes it even more difficult. As well as what Nicole said, you know, getting on corporate boards and being able, you know, to push that agenda. But also while you're in corporate America, African-American women that's there need to understand that we have to sacrifice, we have to bond together and decide who's the best person for that job and who are we going to push and support and be behind to help them to get to those levels.
Beautifully stated, Alva, beautifully put.
May I build on that?
Please, Donna. Michelle.
Yes. I'd like to build on that, and I'm just going to go point to our Colgate-Palmolive company, who is a world leader in consumer products. Although I focus on oral care, there are other, you know, brand lines that we deal with, surface care, and you know some of those products that we have. On our board, we have one African-American woman. Just one. We are now moving some other African-American women into the pipeline, but not that many into the pipeline so they can move into different positions and higher positions. So I asked the one Black woman who was a board member, how did you become a board member of Colgate-Palmolive company? She's been there for a year. And you know what she said to me? She went up to one of the CEOs and said, and she just asked, how can I be on your board? And she's on the board. Now, she's a heavy hitter. Don't get me wrong. She comes with it all the fire, all the credentials, bright, smart, you know, really in the top echelons of her game. But when I asked her how she got there, she said she asked.
Mm-hmm. Donna Michelle,
I just throw that out there.
Excuse me for interrupting, but I'm thinking about that African-American saying and how much truth there is to it. Closed mouth gets no food. Mm-hmm. Asking is a part of it. But I think we're also talking about a complex of factors here. Let's just call it what it is. It is that unconscious bias that says so often, why would we want to advance her. She's an angry Black woman. Now, I'm not saying that a sign has been put up, beware. You know, you could get coronavirus and beware of angry Black women, but there is such a widespread bias. We know that's a factor. Mm-hmm. There's something else though. And now I'd love to pivot over and to hear Teresa on this. There is something called pure access. And that's what Donna Michelle was talking about. That sister knew who to ask, and she had access to him. I'd love to hear from you sisters. I know it, you're not the CEO, but come on. Look at the positions in corporate America that the four of you hold. Who are your mentors? Who do you go to? Who's helped you to get where you are? And now I'm coming back to Sister Alva's point. And who are you helping while you are being helped?
You know, I think that Donna made such a great point, and Nicole, about the importance of having Blacks and women on the boards of these Fortune 100 companies. It is, I think, a truth that leaders who are diverse are better at building diverse teams, better at leading diverse teams, and profiting from diverse teams. And until the people who are making the choices, making the selection, are themselves qualified and skilled as diverse leaders, they're not going to select diverse people to succeed them or to acquire leadership of companies. Because as you said, with unconscious bias, we all have central casting in our head, right? Mm-hmm. We all have an impression that we know what a CEO looks like. And the fewer Ursula Burns that we see in our lives, the fewer of us have an image of what a CEO who's an African-American woman looks like. Mm-hmm. And we have to rail against that. You know, when I first went from private practice into corporate America, I was pulled into that by an African-American man who was the general counsel of MetLife. Mm-hmm. And I'm indebted to his mentorship for helping me make that leap from private practice into being in-house, or for taking me under his wing and mentoring me and helping me to develop. And then when I came to Home Depot, there was an African-American woman, Bonnie Hill, on the board of Home Depot, the successor to Dr. Cole, who also used to be on the board of directors of Home Depot. And Bonnie took me under her wing and said, I'm here for you. I'm here to fight for you, to defend for you, to give you some optionality when you have an issue or a problem. And I'm indebted to her. And I think so that the thought that we have to be here for each other, and that we have to help nurture and develop those who are coming along with us on this journey and be there. And I think just the simple act of saying, whenever if I hear someone take a woman down a peg, I'm never going to be silent about that. I had a fellow colleague at Home Depot said, oh, so-and-so doesn't have a strategic bone in her body. And my speaking up and said, I wish you would talk to me a little bit about that, because I've experienced her quite differently. And I remember when she led this strategic initiative. So I'd love to hear more about what's giving you that point of view. And just don't be quiet and let people get away with saying that, because what they're saying is in her head, she doesn't look like a strategy person to me, or she doesn't sound like a strategy person to me. And you can often be a part of changing the dialogue or the narrative that they're building in their head about a person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Nicole, did you want to weigh in?
I do. On 2 points. One, in terms of who has influenced and who's been a mentor to me. So Terry McClure was the former general counsel and the former chief human resources officer at UPS. And my career started at UPS because of Terry. I had been outside counsel at Alston & Bird, and I was working at Delta Airlines. And I'd known Terry because I interviewed with her at a law firm, where, by the way, I did not get the job as a summer clerk. And I kept up with Terry, and she saw something in me. And in a time that I didn't expect it, she called me into UPS, and 17 years later, here I am. And so there are divine, pathways and messages and angels that come your way, and Terry was mine. And so I think, in terms of your question, in terms of what we're doing and who we are mentoring, several years ago, we set up an internship through the Atlanta Legal Foundation, the SLIP program, and it was an internship process just for coming through the corporate legal department in Atlanta. And I started thinking about my career and how there were no lawyers in my family when I decided that I wanted to go to law school. And so we expanded that program so that they could come and spend a summer, not only in Atlanta, but then come to me in public affairs at UPS and in Washington, D.C. And I've got housing for them, and it's a paid internship. And I now have 5 young ladies who have gone either through law school and graduated, and one more who's in law school right now. And when I look at those young ladies, I think about the power of mentorship and what you can do just by sitting down and saying, I think we're going to give them a chance and offer them an internship and nurture them. And I take them to church with me and bring them home and cook them a meal and, just all of the things that someone poured into me when I was young. And I think it's important that we give back in that way.
Now, Sister Lita, I know you are sitting back and you didn't think you were going to be a full participant at this point. But I have to turn to you, Ingrid, because I'm just thinking about one of the most precious and powerful mentoring relationships I've observed. And that, of course, is that relationship between you and my Spelman sister, Helen Price Smith. But I also know that you have had mentors. So I'd love to hear you weigh in on this.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Dr. J. I'm just fascinated to listen to all of these women. You are so wonderful. And indeed, my mentors have, one of my most important mentors was not in corporate America. It was with a nonprofit in Detroit, Michigan. It was a woman who hired me, who was a white woman who hired me knowing she was looking for her replacement. I was less than 30 years old, and I just thought I was getting a job. But that job became the springboard for everything that happened since. And that job was the springboard to bring me to Atlanta, where I have had the privilege of being mentored by the city council president, who was then Carl Ware, working for Maynard Jackson, who was one of the most powerful mentors I had, but also being mentored at Coke by Mr. Ware and by Roberto Goizueta. I understand the power of mentorship. And when I was looking for my deputy, when I became chair of the Coca-Cola Foundation, I put together a list of 10 people by consulting with people I trusted. And there was one name that I had never heard of, and her name was Helen Smith Price. Never heard of her, put her on the list. She leapt to the head of the list, and I hired her. I decided I would teach her everything I know. And that is what I did over time. And because that is what had happened to me. But may I take a moment to tell another story about a Spelman sister, a young woman, and Dr. Cole, you may remember her. Her name was Carol Williams, and she graduated from Spelman, and she was working for a temp service, and she was the backup to my secretary. So she sat in second chair, and I let her sit there for about 4 months. And then one day I asked her, now, Carol, what do you want to do? And she said, I want to be a lawyer. I said, have you taken the LSAT? She said, no. I said, well, you're going to have to do that. And I gave her to Helen Price. We took her to the legal department. She studied for the LSAT, and we kicked her out of Coca-Cola. She went to law school at Howard, and she is a thriving lawyer at in Washington, D.C. I tell you that story because you have to help young people, no matter what their age, but help them see the world bigger for themselves. And that really kind of goes back to what you all were talking about, sisters helping sisters. But we cannot underestimate the value of mentorship.
Thank you, thank you. Now, we have about 15 minutes and the possibility of our NCNW sisters taking advantage of you. 4 incredibly powerful and soulful Black women in corporate America. So I'm not sure who is going to assist us in getting questions from our...
I'll be assisting you.
Good. All right. Do we have a question?
Yes, we have one question for you all. What is the most efficient method for moving beyond the glass, quote unquote, glass ceiling in the corporate setting?
Not breaking it, but moving beyond it. I love that.
So I'll take that. When you talk about an efficient method, you have to know the process within your corporation. So if there's a career development process, we have to ask for what we want. Sometimes in these career development processes, it's a one-way street where you're listening to your boss talk to you about your career and giving you feedback, but then you're not making the ask or any sort of follow-up of your superior. And so you have to make sure that you have very clear objectives when you're going into career development, and that it's almost like a campaign. I mean, you have to be clear about what your goals have been, how you've accomplished them, because competency is going to be the first indicator of any ability to move up. And then you have to have the ability to really say, where do you see yourself in that organization? And set forth a number of options. And it may be outside of your comfort zone. It may be maybe you're a legal person and you say, you know what, I think I want to try strategy. I was a labor and employment lawyer on the employment side, very comfortable there. And I took a leap to go into traditional labor law with the union collective bargaining agreements. There were no Black women, not even many women at all, sitting at the collective bargaining negotiations table. And so you've got to ask for what you want and be very thoughtful about how you're going to get there. But as one of my mentors said, don't ask, don't get.
Mm-hmm. Any other sister want to weigh in on that?
I think that part of our challenge is that, I find women and African-American women in particular to be exceptionally loyal people. And we often allow ourselves to play the role of the great supporter without stepping outside of that support role to take responsibility in a different way and to think holistically, not just about progressing up a ladder that someone else has laid out for you, but thinking about lateral moves and other ways to aggregate power and experiences and connections besides just going in a straight line way up in a particular channel. And I think sometimes we find ourselves so loyal to a particular channel or to a particular path that we don't look and see alternative paths or roadways. And sometimes that's going to mean you have to decide to leave a position that you're very comfortable in and that you like in order to take a risk in a different channel or in a different way or in a different company.
Do we have another question?
Yes, we do. What about the unconscious biases that adversely impact some Black women's view and belief in themselves that prevent them from pushing forward against those ceilings? How can we help change that psychological dynamic?
Great question.
I'll step in for a moment. and sort of build on what Teresa just said about stepping outside of your comfort zone, how to get comfortable with that. You're not going to get comfortable with that, but you have to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. And you've got to give it a try. During this whole pandemic, we've all had to pivot, transform. We've had to be resilient. And through all this process, I've found, and I've said this a little bit earlier, that the talent comes out. You have to put yourself in places where you are more visible, highly, projects that have high awareness, that again will take you out of your comfort zone, that'll, help you go around those ceilings. I never thought that I would be an expert in supply and logistics until the pandemic hit. I know how to move 1 million units from Mexico to all the school districts throughout the United States here. So I think that building on that, stepping outside of your comfort zone, what the company may already have prescribed to you as a way to go, looking at those lateral moves, looking at those moves that may not be your traditional path, do help you to see that larger landscape and that larger horizon, and then be confident when you make that move.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to add to what Donna just said. You've got to really create a circle of support. It's really, really important to have that circle of support, because at all times, some of us need, to have that uplift. And so make sure you have a really great circle of support. And that could be internally or externally. You have great friends, and some of us have, sorority sisters, your line sisters.
Mm-hmm.
You have individuals, you have Dr. Cole that you can call. And so you've got to really create a circle of support. And then you have to go back and you have to say, what is it in this company? Because sometimes you have a lot more wherewithal than you think you do. And, where can I create value? And that way, to help the company, as well as creating value for myself and the people around me that I'm helping.
Mm-hmm.
So I think those are the two biggest things, being able to have a great support system, and then looking for areas where in the company where you can create value.
Mm-hmm. Is there another question? And I'm hoping I can get in one last one, but is there another question for our panel?
Well, how important is it to foster relationships with allies to move into these spaces?
I'll take that because I've been wanting to mention before, when we were talking about mentors and sponsors, that I've had a lot of mentors that didn't look like me. And so that speaks to the concept of allyship, because we talked about the fact that there are no Black female CEOs right now. And so you've got to partner with the folks that are in power. Until we get there in droves, you've got to partner and have some allies. It's basically undoable without allies. And so I think it's important also to know the distinction between a mentor and a sponsor. A sponsor is someone who's going to give you air cover and use their political capital for you. That's very different than a mentor. A mentor, and you need both. The mentor is going to give you, the back conversation, talk to you about the way you comport yourself, maybe introduce you to people, pick you up when you're down, give you that advice. But you need the sponsor that's going to spend their political capital on you. And sometimes they are allies. And so you've got to walk that line and maybe use your mentors to introduce you to the sponsors if they can't be the sponsor for you. Mm-hmm. So don't underestimate that.
Another question, the final one.
Final question. As an African-American female leader, what has been the most significant barrier in your career?
Can
I say something?
Of course, Sister Leader.
I know my day is over in corporate America, but I want to give you an example of a barrier that was amazing to me. After I had been at the Coca-Cola company about 10 years, and I did not have an African-American manager. And I was a junior officer, if you will, and I raised a question, and someone talked about this. You have to ask. I raised a question about my bonus because I know what I had done. And if I raised the question on Thursday, I had another check on Friday, okay? An additional check that doubled what I got on Thursday. But my boss said something to me. He said, and I don't think he really understood what he was saying. He said, you know, I'm just not used to women working for me. He said it to me. And so ducks like ducks, and ducks take care of ducks. But I had to reposition myself. I said, I'm not going to put that on him. I'm going to reposition myself with him. And I started spending time with him. In a way, I know he thought I was crazy coming into his office, talking to him, and helping him expand his vision of the world. It really was quite an exercise, and I did it.
Good. Anyone else want to respond to that question? Well, I am going to be conscious of time. So my four sister panelists, we talk a lot because it makes us feel good and because it has reality about Black girl power. So I want to imagine that you have got it doubled up. Imagine that you really do have the ability to change corporate America around receptivity to and justice toward Black women. So with your magic wand, what is the one thing that you would begin to work on?
That's a great challenge to have. And with my Holly and Phoenix Feather wand, I would make sure that everybody gets a chance to work in an environment where they see and engage with regularly with people that look like them. Because I think a part of being able to bring your whole self to work is seeing it in the environment that you belong and that you are included. And I think having to come to work every day in an environment where you don't interact with people like you, or you don't see people like you, makes you constantly challenge yourself and your sense of belonging and how you should have input and how you have to show up. And I think also when you're the only Black woman or the only woman or the only African American in an environment, the burden that you feel to represent everyone else that could also be in that room and should be in that room, but who is not, can be overwhelming. And so one of the things that we're looking at, for example, at Home Depot is when we bring in people in for an interview and we want them to interview with the team that they're going to be working with, do we make sure that that interview day includes the opportunity to interview with people that look like them, whether they're going to be part of their day-to-day experience, a work team or not, so that they know that they are included, so that they know that they are belong, that they know that they are welcomed, and that they have permission to come to work as they are. And I think we all have to think about those subtleties in the environment that can make a difference for how people feel that they have the right to be there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. My other sisters?
I will take what Teresa said with her wand and add a little bit to a world where we are paid what we're worth. Without having to ask and negotiate in fear I remember when I moved from one company to another, and I was talking about benefits, and I was nervous. You know, I was nervous about having the discussion around pay. A lot of times we're not comfortable talking about our salaries. We may not even have access to information about the options that are out there for us. We may not even know, and the recruiters are not going to open up the purse strings any more than they have to. And so I would love to see a world where we are paid what we're worth. And so that we can share that information with our daughters and teach them how to invest, teach them how to manage their debt, because when you're debt free, you can make decisions about your life and you can change other people's lives and you can take risk. And so that economic power is magic. And that's what I would do with my wand.
Oh, Nicole, I like that so much. I mean, it gets on my last nerve that a Black woman is going to get 85 cents to every dollar that a white man gets.
That's right.
Probably doing the job not half as well as she. Really appreciate that response.
I would wave my magic wand that every Black woman will, you know, own her power and understand her strength. And that's what I would do, especially in corporate America, and not to be afraid to move up. Because if you don't own your power and understand your strength, then it's very, very difficult to move beyond that. So you've got to have that confidence to be able to walk in and ask for what you want and let them know what your intention is. You have to be very intentional.
You got the one, Donna, Michelle, what you gonna do?
I'm gonna echo the same thing that all my other sisters said here on this panel. And the reason I'm saying that is you gotta be courageous. You've gotta own your power. You've got to know your worth. You gotta be comfortable and having those conversations. Even if it is uncomfortable, you still have to be comfortable. And if you don't, fake it. Walk in the door like you just fake it. Take that confidence pill, walk in the door and do it. I will say, I ask every year, and they probably are sick of me, very much like what Ingrid Saunders did. Well, you know, where's my bonus? And this is supposed to be, and I would ask all the time. And it was a sister who said to me, superior to me, said to me, I'm going to make sure this happens for you. And her job, me succeeding became her job. And I appreciate her. She might be listening right now. I appreciate her for doing that. But she was not afraid to have that conversation on my behalf. Again, the difference between a sponsor and a mentor. So if I wave that magic wand, I would hope that everybody could get a sponsor.
Well, sisters.
Can I make one last point of emphasis?
Oh, please do.
Because if there, I guess there are two. It's the word courage, and I talked about it when I introduced you all. You have to be courageous, but more practically, I want to put a point of emphasis on living below your means. Nicole, you talked about it. You've got to live below your means. My father told me that when I first started working. He said, you live below your means so that you don't get you choked up with somebody violating your soul line and you can't do anything about it. And I have done that. I did that my entire corporate life. That's why I was so bold 27 years ago and asked that man for my money.
Oh, we do have an enemy, and it's called time. This has been so rich. And you know, it's been that wonderful duality of being informative and inspiring. I'm going to close us out by using my wand, but I'm not going to use it in corporate America. I'm inspired to use my Black girl magic right now out of the experience that many of us had last evening. We had a very rich day. And we ended in a session with Dr. T. And Dr. Tony led us through an experience in meditation, mindfulness, and joy. And I'm going to use my magic wand to make sure that each of you spend time taking care of yourselves. I know you're powerful, but you're also precious to us. And in the process of taking care of everybody else, my magic wand is going to help you take care of yourselves. In sisterhood, thank you.